are in listen-only mode.
Yes, hello everyone. This is Adam Riegel with Progress Home Buyers and the Jacksonville Wealth Builders. I don't usually get to do these webinars, so I'm kind of excited. Actually, Adam Eisman is up in Memphis, Tennessee at a seminar, teaching a seminar this weekend, or this week. So I'm subbing in, and I have the privilege of having a special guest join us today. It's our title agent. It's Cassandra Joyner. Cassandra, are you on the line?
I am.
Oh, good stuff. Can you see the screen correctly? Can you
Okay.
see? Yes. All right. We're all good. Well, I want to again thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to be talking about closings. It's a subject that doesn't get enough press. It's not as glamorous as some of the other topics of buying properties and financing and some of those kind of things, but it's equally as important. The best part about it is it's easy. And it's easy because of great teammates that we have like Cassandra, so that's why I wanted to get her on the line so we can talk about the closing process, how it works, why it's important, and really delve into that kind of stuff. So by the end of the call today, we're going to go about 20 minutes, and that's all today. And by the end, it will be simple. You'll know why you need it, and you will be an expert from that point on. So let's go ahead and jump on it. Closings here. Let's see. There you go. All right, we got it working. So I wanted to start off by talking about, in a closing process, Cassandra, can you tell me when would a person, whether they're a buyer or a seller, buying and selling real estate, when is it important for them to contact you? When do we first start working with you as a title agent?
Well, when you first get the contract and it's signed by the buyer and the seller, it's really important that you get it right over to us. That way we can start our title search right away.
Okay, so if you're a buyer or seller, right when you are signing up a contract, so as soon as you sign up a contract to work with someone, you want to be able to forward that contract directly to a title agent, let them know, hey, I've put a house under contract, I am hoping to close, X amount into the future, a month out. Can you start the process for me of the closing process so that I will be ready to go, prepared, won't have any surprises, and I'll be able to close on this house without a hitch. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So let's. I know we're saying when you need a title agent, but let's talk about what a title agent does and who you are. Tell me about yourself. Kind of introduce yourself to the team here, and let me know why somebody would need to work with a title agent.
Well, I work for Elite Title and Escrow. We actually handle the majority of all the closings for Progress. It's really important that you get title insurance. A couple items are to verify ownership, first of all, to make sure that the person that you're actually buying the property from owns it legally, to clear up any liens on the property, and to handle the settlement and the closing.
Okay. Those are three very, very powerful points. When you say that the person you're buying the property from is actually the person that owns it, I don't know if people think about that when they're buying real estate. That's not something that dawns on people that, hey, maybe this person that I just signed up a contract with is not the actual owner or only a partial owner. What have you had that happen? What kind of things have you seen in your experiences from people that may or may not be the owners of a piece of real estate that they're selling?
Well, a good example would be if you wanted to buy a house and say you met John and Jane Doe and they were brother and sister and they were going to sell you this great house at this great deal. Well, you signed a contract and you sent it over to me, and once title got ran, you realized that not only do John and Jane Doe own the property, but their brother and sister who live in California or a different country are on title as well. So, in fact, if you bought the property without title insurance from John and Jane Doe, then not only do you own only half the property, the other two brothers and sisters that you didn't know were even on title now own half the property.
That's pretty scary if you think about it. So you can have, siblings. You can have a house that's passed on to siblings, and siblings could be, fighting amongst each other, and two siblings try to sell a house without letting the other two know. And you would never know if you didn't have title insurance. I mean, all you have to do is, basically sign a contract and sign over a deed and hand some money back and forth. And that's really all there is in a transaction without going through a title company and getting a title search and title insurance and some of the things we'll talk about in a few minutes here. That's good to know. I forgot to mention this before, but if anyone has any questions anytime along this process, there's actually a question bar that's part of the GoToWebinar. If you look over on the side where it shows the webinar, it has a little area for questions, and you can actually type in questions, and they'll go immediately to me, and I'll be answering them throughout the webinar and also at the end too if people have questions. So, all right, so that's just an example of some of the scary things. So you were talking about people that don't have ownership. What were the other ones? The other couple points you said, handling the closing process and all the closing docs. And what was that third item that you mentioned before?
Handling the closing process, clearing all the liens on property. That's a big one.
Okay, we're going to get into that one too. So to protect us from liens, let's talk about title insurance. And title insurance is the next item that is so crucial and so key that what a title agent actually does for you. Title insurance, kind of a funny term. I know there's insurance for everything. What is title insurance, and how is it going to help me, KJ?
Well, there's lender's title insurance. If you're getting a loan on the property, your lender is going to require what is called lender's title insurance, which ensures your lender's coverage that the only liens or loans on the property are the ones to your lender specifically, and that the only owner on the property is you since you're buying it. There is owner's title insurance, which is different than your lender's title insurance. Your lender's title insurance coverage is only good when the mortgage is on the property. Once that mortgage is paid off, the lender is no longer covered. Your owner's coverage goes on forever. What that means is it's different from any other insurance policy. It goes backwards. So you're insured from the time you bought it, so that anything that happened to that property or that piece of land that you bought prior to that is only the stuff that we have told you is on there or that you put on there yourself.
Okay. All right. So unlike auto insurance, so I buy auto insurance, I buy it today, a week from now I get in an accident and they cover me because I have insurance. Title insurance is working the opposite direction. So I close on a house and buy a home today. I get title insurance, which insures me from the day of closing all the way into the past. So if any issues happen in the past that weren't caught originally, that weren't cleared up in your title insurance policy that you're issuing me, the title insurance company will take care of those issues. Is that correct?
Well, it's what it's called a duty to defend or duty to indemnify, which means unlike your auto insurance policy, if you got in an accident and you were going to get sued, you'd have to get your own attorney. What happens is your underwriter is responsible for all of that. They'll actually go to court, they'll fight all the legal battles for you, and they'll clear up anything that's on title. If you weren't aware of it, then they handle all of that.
Wow. So, I'm pointing it out that it helps you sleep at night. I mean, that's the truth, and I can't speak highly enough about it. I'll give you a couple examples of things that have happened to us over the last 5.5 years. Taxes. We had a case where we bought a house, got a title insurance policy that and Cassandra took care of running title for us. And then the tax appraiser went out and did a special assessment back tax from a couple years prior to when we purchased the house that I never knew about. So I bought the house, the tax appraiser came out sometime within that next year, assessed this back tax to me, and then I went to go sell the house, and lo and behold, I find out I've got $1,800 tax that's on there that should have been cleared up, and it just was never caught. I issued a claim, and the title insurance company actually paid that tax for me. Another thing that happened to us recently was we bought a house, and there was a mortgage that didn't show up when we ran title. I don't even know why it didn't show up. I think it wasn't recorded until after we bought the house, something like that. Do you know the specifics about that mortgage that kind of popped up on that house we bought a few months back? No.
The mortgage was, it was covered in the gap period.
Okay.
It showed up after the fact, and It was somebody trying to pull something quickly and make money on a property.
There you go. So they basically said, "Oh yeah, you bought a house that we had a mortgage on, and now you owe me money." And so what we did was we sent that information to our title insurance company, and they are actually fighting with or handling the legal side with this person who says they have a mortgage that needs to be paid by us. I mean, if I didn't have a title insurance problem or a policy, then now I have a problem. And now I'm dealing with this person who says they're owed money and that they need to be paid off in order for me to have no liens on my house, on my property. So those are just some quick examples of how title insurance is really going to save you, and everyone needs to make sure that they get title insurance when they're buying a house. I want to show you a house that we actually purchased a while back, give you kind of an example of some other reasons why you need title insurance and get clear title. Sandra, what's that a picture of? Do you know?
An ugly house.
Absolutely. That is a really ugly house. I try to put a bunch of pictures because it's one of the ugliest houses I've ever seen. So, you know, this is the carport inside of the house, and then bam, you look inside of the home and it looks like they just basically took everything in their entire life and threw it in the middle of the room and just let it sit like that. And the roof had a big leak, so water was all over the place and mildew, and it was just nasty. And so we went to go buy this home, and this is what you're going to see on a lot of foreclosed homes. I mean, these are homes that are neglected by the previous owner. You know, they're told to leave, so they just leave, and they don't take care of anything. And then the house sits vacant for long periods of time and just collects just trash inside. And so the city then drives around and they see homes like this, and this had a couple busted out windows. And so the city said, you know what, we want you to fix that. And so they sent a letter out to the owners, who have now left at this time, and said, fix the house, or we're going to fine you. And of course nobody responded. So the city said, okay, well, we're going to start assessing a lien on the house, a fine on the house. And the fine was actually $250 per day on this house. And this house sat for about 256 days of it sitting around collecting basically these per diem fines. What happens, Cassandra, if I don't go and get a title policy and I don't go through you, I just buy the house on my own? What happens with this rolling fine on the house?
Well, if you bought this house and there was a rolling fine at $250 a day, we'll just say for 256 days, you now owe the city $64,000 on a house that you probably paid $20,000 for.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And you're stuck.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. And the whole point is the city's like, you know what, we're going to charge this fine that's so big that people have to pay it off or have to come and see us in order for someone to be able to buy this house. So what, you know, if I came through you, and that's actually what we did, give you just kind of a general overview of what you can do in order to help people to make deals happen. What would you do in this case in order to make this deal happen?
Well, unfortunately, I'm really familiar with these kind of liens, especially now that the city's trying to make money. So what we'll do is I contact our person that we have down at the city and find out what forms we need to fill out. In this particular case, they're not going to release the lien until the house is fixed up because it's a hazard to other people. So, but they do have a process, and for any city, whether it be, you know, Jacksonville or Miami, each city has their own process. In Jacksonville's case, they have a process where you can pay a minimum of $1,500. I think it's a maximum of $2,500 to the city, and you actually sign a form that states that you are going to close on this property and that you are going to have this taken care of within, you give them a time frame, 6 months, a year, however. And when you do that, they'll take the $1,500 that you paid, accept that, and release the lien.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, to think about it, it's a $20,000 home. It's got this huge fine on it, you know, without knowing some of those kind of secrets, because they don't tell you how to fix these issues. The city basically says pay $64,000. And unless you know the process of getting around it by contacting the right people, signing up some extra documentation, having it go in front of a board that then allows you to have extra time to remodel this house and pay a reduced fee to buy this house. I mean, this is not possible for most people to buy these type of homes. it's just an extra value, an extra benefit of knowing the right people, having title agents that know what they're doing in order to get deals done. And that's really what we have with Cassandra. So appreciate that. So that was just an example of kind of a nightmare that can happen without having the right people. I mean, look at this. That's an ugly house, and that's a huge fine. So let's talk about some other things. Get out of the title insurance and some of those things. The process of a closing. Think about if you've already closed on a primary residence in the past. Think about the parties involved. And when you're dealing with the closing, you may have realtors and mortgage brokers, buyers, sellers, all these agents and lenders and people all over the place that all have an intricate piece in getting a transaction done. And what I found early on was everyone wants to go through me, the buyer in most cases, or what they want to do is they want to give you a little bit of information that you need to go pass on to somebody else. And I found myself playing middleman in a lot of these cases. And it really just wasn't efficient and sucked up a ton of my time. And it wasn't until we started working with Cassandra where Cassandra came in and said, you know what, let me talk to these people directly. Let me play middleman and take all the information from these people directly in order to facilitate a closing. Cassandra, what do you talk? Tell me about these people. How do you deal with them? What do you talk to them about? That kind of stuff for a closing.
Well, first of all, it's important that we do get the information, because if the lenders and the realtors keep contacting you, we still have to get the information regardless, because we're the one actually handling the closing. Mm-hmm. So, and we're a mutual party in all of this. So we're here to make sure the lender gets what the lender needs, the buyer gets what the buyer needs, the seller gets what the seller needs. We are a mutual party so that we're not biased. We're not out to charge higher fees and make sure that the buyer pays more closing costs than the sellers. But it's easier if we contact everybody so that we can send updates to everybody. We know when it's closing, and we can make it as efficient and smooth as possible for our closing.
And it is it's definitely smooth when you jump in and handle all this kind of stuff. And being that neutral party, that is very important. It's important to point that out, because you don't work for us. You work for the transaction. You're working for all of these people in order to make the transaction happen. And you can see, especially when you're dealing with real estate, it's a large dollar figure. There's a lot of negotiating that goes involved in real estate. It's nice to have somebody who's neutral that is not going to negotiate with you, that you don't have to worry about, losing a competitive edge by giving away too much information. Their job is to collect information from all these different parties, put them all together to make sure the transaction happens. And that's very important.
Yeah, because we don't get paid unless it actually closes.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. So then I want to talk about the closing. All right, we've got everyone together. Everyone understands when the closing is and their roles. We come to the closing table. I mean, I've been to a closing before where it was like a party. It was 10 plus people in the room, and it was family members of the buyer, and then agents assistants and lenders, and I mean, there were just tons of people in this closing. But really what it comes down to is you don't need any of those kind of people. You need a title agent to help you through the paperwork, because that's the part that scares people, is this brick of paperwork that you get, because it's all written by attorneys who get paid per page. So Cassandra, tell me, let people know what happens at the closing table in case anyone has any concerns of the actual closing table process is.
Well, when you come to closings with us, our specific process is to start with the settlement statement. We want to make sure that all of the figures that you've agreed to on the contract are specified on the HUD, that the buyer's paying what the buyer's supposed to pay, the seller's paying what the seller's supposed to pay, and that any liens or mortgages are getting paid off on the closing statement. That's the first thing that we go over. Everybody looks at the same closing statement. There's no differences between yours and the seller's. We're not trying to help anybody out. We want to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into when you come in there. And then we have all of your lender stocks. Your lender sends us this 200-page file that we have to print out of all of your mortgage and your note and all the important stuff that you have to sign. And basically I go over it for you page by page, so that when you leave, you understand that exactly what you just did, exactly who to mail your payments to, exactly when your taxes are due, if it's going to be your homestead property, who you can contact. If you have questions afterward, you can call me. If so-and-so knocks on your door and says that they own a portion of your property, that you can call me directly and we'll handle everything from there.
It's pretty powerful. It's pretty fantastic. So you don't need to be an expert at reading closing statements. You don't really need to do any homework beforehand. You need to just show up with your driver's license and any questions that you may have, and feel comfortable that we're going to spend as much time as it takes. What would you say is kind of average closing time somebody's getting a loan to buy a house?
The average closing time is usually 30 to 45 minutes. I've seen them go 15 minutes. If it's your second home, I've seen them go 2.5 hours, and people want to read the documents. If you want to read the documents, it's perfectly fine by us.
Yeah, if you want to read the documents, that's fantastic. I recommend everyone read the documents at home when you are up late at night and can't go to sleep, because it will definitely help you sleep. Yeah, I mean, and that's really the way it is. So if you will spend as much time as possible, as much time as you need to really feel comfortable, make sure all your questions are answered by the time you're leaving the closing. Just the last couple points that I want to touch on today is closing costs, because I get questions all the time of who's supposed to pay, each part of closing costs, and it gets kind of confusing. So what I want to do is break down my Adam Regal's rule of thumbs for both sides of the closing costs. So we're going to get into that, and I'll let Cassandra kind of hit on a couple of these points, see if she's got anything to add to my slides here. But my rule of thumb, and this is what I teach all the guys in the office, is if you are on the buying side, so if you're buying a property, you are going to pay any of the cost related to getting funding to purchase the property. All right? It's important to look at it just like I wrote it. It's funding to purchase the property. So if you're getting a loan, you're going to pay anything associated with loans and that kind of stuff. Cassandra, you want to hit on all these different points? Let's see if I missed any as far as the buyer's closing costs.
Yeah, your mortgage and loan fees, that's your origination that you're paying, what it's costing you to get the loan. Any of your prepaid taxes and insurance are your escrows. If you're escrowing, which is paying your taxes and insurance as part of your payment, if you decide to do that, you have to make sure that your lender has enough funds in your escrow account. And then title insurance for your lender. That's your responsibility, because you chose to get a loan in this process, so you're responsible to pay for your lender's title insurance. Taxes, it's intangible taxes, and any fees to record your mortgage, you're responsible for, because you chose to get a loan to buy this house.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. That's pretty much what the buyer pays for on their side, depending on, I mean, you have prorations and such, but it depends on what your lender's fees are, is what gets charged to you.
Yeah. So, I can't give you, hey, this is how much your closing costs are going to be, but, typically for the homes we sell, our homes are generally somewhere in the $70,000 to $90,000 range. If someone is getting a loan to be able to buy a home, depending on how much some of these, how much the taxes are and the prepaids and what the lender is actually going to charge for fees, you're looking at just approximately about $5,000 in buyer's closing cost if you're getting a loan for a house at our dollar figure, $70,000 to $90,000. Let's get into seller's closing cost. What I always say is that the seller is responsible for any costs relating to the transfer of clear ownership from one party to the next. So as a seller, I need to make sure that I'm clearing up any liens on the house, anything. I need to make sure that I'm giving clear ownership over to the next party that's buying it from me. Do you want to hit on some of these topics here for seller's closing costs?
Your realtor commission. If you buy a house and there's a realtor, the seller is responsible to pay the selling agent and the listing agent's commission, because they did their job and they found you a buyer.
Okay.
So that gets put on the seller side. Title insurance for your new owner. Your owner's title insurance policy, and this is a standard practice for our area. It could be different for other states, but our area, the seller pays your title owner's insurance policy to ensure to you that you're buying the house, they're selling it to you, and the only liens or loans on the property are the ones that you are putting on there. The title search and the closing fee, title agent fees, they pay that as well, because they have to pay to get a search so that they can show you that the title's clear, and they pay the closing fee just as a standard practice for our area.
Mm-hmm.
Taxes is to record the deed. That would be your deed stamps, because the county has to make money, so they charge deed stamps based on the sales price, so the seller pays, because regardless, that's how much it's going to cost to deed the property out, so the seller pays that as a standard practice.
All right, perfect. So yeah, so you can see all of those costs are all related to clearing up title and transferring it from one party to the next. All right, so that kind of concludes kind of the basics on closing. If anyone has any other questions, we've had a question come through that I just want to touch on. It's asking whether or not, what happens if you're not local. So if someone is buying a house and they're not located in Jacksonville and they have a closing, how does that actually happen and occur? Do you want to take that, Cassandra?
Yeah, well, our process is set up specifically, we handle a lot of mailaways. I'm probably more than 50% of my closings are people in different states. And if you're buying Florida property, then I would be handling it for you. Say you're in Virginia and I'm in Florida, I'll still communicate with you through email or phone, but when your package actually comes in, what happens is I will set it up just like I would a regular closing in the office, and I prefer to overnight the package to you. I highlight all of the places you have to sign, date it. I call you ahead of time, or I can email you ahead of time to let you know specifically what I need. And then we actually pay to have a notary come to you to notarize the documents and give you a general explanation. And if you want, while you're doing your closing, you're more than welcome to call me and sit on the phone while you're doing your closing, but that's what the notary is supposed to do as well. Okay. And they can come to your work or your home or however you choose to do it.
Okay. All right, great. So you're actually having someone come out to the office to wherever you're located to go through and handle the closing process. So you're not on your own, and then you just drop it in a FedEx. You even send the FedEx slip, so it doesn't cost people anything, and they can FedEx all the closing docs back overnight at the next day. I got another question here from Barry. Barry asked, when buying an REO, is it typical to ask the seller to pay my owner's title insurance?
Okay, I can answer that one.
All right.
Because I have done REOs. I do deal with a lot of REOs. And for our area, again, it's typical for the seller to pay the owner's title insurance policy if you're willing to use their title company. They have a title company that they set up, and if you close with them, then generally they pay your owner's title insurance policy. You'd have to specifically read through your contract to see if it says if you chose your own title company to close your loan, if they would still pay for it. It's a case-by-case basis, but they should pay for your owner's title policy.
Yep. So in most cases, what we see is yes, the bank that's selling these REO properties, these real estate owned foreclosed homes, yes, most of the time they will pay that owner's title policy for you if you use the title company that they pick. Generally, a seller gets to pick the title company they want to go with. Now what we do is we look at our contracts and we make sure if they don't specify a company that they want to use, we can actually pick to opt to go with Elite Title, go with Cassandra, and in some cases they'll pay the owner's title policy. In some cases, if we pick the company we want to go through, we have to pay the title policy. It really varies per deal, but yes, the REO, the bank should pay for that owner's policy in most cases, especially if you're using their title company. All right. Any final questions? And we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up. I don't see anything else coming in. So I want to, again, thank you, first of all, Cassandra, for jumping on the call and going through this closing process. If anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and email me at adam@progresshomebuyers.com, and they'll come to me, and I can fire them over to Cassandra and get any questions answered for anyone else. But again, we appreciate everyone on the call, and looking forward to seeing everyone soon. Take care.
Bye.